Hello, everybody. This is Corey, and this is the very first episode of. I think are we still going to call it the Smark Avengers, guys?
Do we have an alternative name for it? Three really cool boys talk about comics.
Yeah, the good boys. We're the good boys who talk comics. Those good
Oh,
boys.
the good boys. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, my name is Corey, and joining me are fellow good boys, Dylan and John.
Hi.
Hello.
John, you have to be the bad boy. Every group needs a bad boy.
I think I can manage that.
The bad boy of comics reading.
I read them upside down and inside out.
Oh shit!
Oh, you literally you're reading them badly.
Yeah.
As you could probably guess, this is a podcast about comic books. It's very no format, I suppose. Like we have a general guideline, but we're gonna talk freely. We're gonna screw some things up detail wise. Continuity is gonna be a little weird, but it's comic books. Continuity is weird all the time.
It's a
anyway.
different. If that ever happens, it's a different universe.
Exactly.
So we get away with it.
So, if you could probably tell from the differing accents, we are from different parts of the world. And in addition to that, we have very different histories and reading styles with comics in general. So that was kind of one of the things we wanted to do today is kind of give you some background on who we are and what our reading habits are. And then we're going to jump into our specialized topic for the remaining bit of the show. So yeah, we kind of cover the spectrum. I'm a weekly reader. I've been reading consistently since I want to say it's 2008, but a lot of that comes from I'm originally from a part of the country where comic book stores weren't really a thing. So I was having to order them offline. I would order them from Midtown Comics in New York City, and they would ship them to me in not rural West Virginia, but in West Virginia. And before that, I was reading whatever random comics I could find at like yard sales and flea markets as a kid. So yeah, predominantly DC reader. There are some Marvel books I read, but I have a tendency to prefer DC and the Bat family and the Superman family as well. And that's pretty much my background. John, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of started reading comics at a similar sort of time, I'd say. Like always a big fan going back to like the early 90s of the animated X-Men show and the animated Spider-Man show. And that was sort of my gateway drug into the comic book world. But until I started growing up and having money to spend, I can turn it into sort of a hobby, I guess. But yeah, I tend to stick with Marvel mostly, although I do collect a lot of Batman books as well. But rather than individual comic books, I'm a graphic novel reader, so I've got a pretty huge collection of graphic novels, almost like whole runs of pretty much everything from Avengers and Captain America, Iron Man, X-Men, Spider-Man, Daredevil, like just an insane amount really. But yeah, and it's something I've kind of fallen in love with. And
if I could ask you a question real fast, you mentioned the Spider-Man and the X-Men animated series. Did you ever see the Fantastic Four and Incredible Hulk and Iron Man series that came out around the same time?
Yeah, very much so.
Those are interesting ones. Now, here's another weird one. I want to say it was like the early 2000s, they put out a Fantastic Four cartoon on Cartoon Network that was very anime influenced. Did you ever see that?
No, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, if you can find it, check it out. It's an interesting take. But yeah, Dylan, you're up.
Okay. Well, I never learned how to read, so I just look at the pictures.
Yeah, there you go.
So they're lovely pictures.
If they're worth their salt, you can tell the story from just the pictures.
Yeah, Spider-Man, he's got he swings a web, and then he fights a villain who I'm gonna call Mr. Squidman because he's got lots of arms like a squid. No? Okay.
Mr. Squidman.
Mr. Squidman. I started reading the comics in the UK. They used to do. I don't know if they still do them. I think they stopped them now, but they used to do like little collections of 2 or 3 like single issues combined into one magazine. They did them in the 90s, and so I remember after having watched the X-Men cartoon and the Spider-Man cartoon, I was a big fan of Spider-Man, and I saw one of these comics had a picture of Carnage on the front. Carnage is my favorite villain, so I was like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna pick this up. This was in I would say the mid 90s, maybe like 95, 96 ish, I think, maybe a little later than that. So yeah, maybe it was a little bit later than that. And the very first page of this Spider-Man comic talked about Peter Parker talking to his clone Ben Reilly about the third clone skeleton that they had thrown into a smokestack. And I'm like, that's the first page? What the fuck? I was like, they didn't talk about this in the TV show. So I was like hooked. I'm like, I gotta see what this is about. Also, Carnage was in it, so I obviously had to continue reading more stories about Carnage, and was amazed to see that Ben Reilly was Spider-Man. I was like, I have no idea what's going on here. This is crazy. So after that, I was pretty much a Spider-Man kind of guy. I came in during what a lot of people would say was the worst part of Spider-Man's history ever, the Clone Saga. I disagree, but we'll talk about that in a different episode.
Sure.
I predominantly I would read a Spider-Man comics. I do like the X-Men, although as I'm sure we will cover in a lot of these episodes, it's very hard. Like if you haven't been following the X-Men for like a long time, it's very hard to just jump in because a lot of the time it won't make any sense. There's so many X-Men. There's so many different stories. There's so many like is this guy a good guy, a bad guy? That they're tough to follow. Whereas Spider-Man's usually a little easier. So I used to read those little magazines, and like I said, I think they stopped them now. But I would collect trade paperbacks as well. I don't have an extensive collection like John does, but I have a handful of Spider-Man and X-Men trade paperbacks, just the ones that I like the look of. I'm like, I'll pick that up,
So
That's
you're a fan of Carnage. Did you
Yes.
see the second Venom movie that came out a few years ago with Woody Harrelson as Carnage?
I did not.
Yeah.
Any
You
particular
didn't miss
reason?
much.
Well, I was gonna say I didn't watch it because I am a fan of Carnage.
Yeah,
You know?
boy, that's I guess at some point we'll talk movies, even though I probably am not going to be the best person to talk about movies with.
Well, you could watch some of them. We'll pick some films and then we can all watch them so we all know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I guess that would be fine.
Yeah.
I got
Someday
really
we should.
burn out on Marvel movies. and
Someday we
the
should
fact they're
do
still
like
making them.
a special episode where we do like our commentary while we watch a film, so we can all watch like Guardians of the Galaxy and then record our commentary so that other people can play our episode at the same time they play Guardians of the Galaxy and then hear what we have to say about it. I bet people would love that.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, Guardians of the Galaxy is something I have a very love-hate relationship with.
It's great.
It's a great movie, but I hate what
So good.
they've done to the comics. I
Well,
really preferred Guardians of the Galaxy before they changed all the characterization to match the movie.
see, I didn't know dick about it, the comics, but man, the films are good. That's
Mhm.
good enough for me.
I personally, like I said, I really liked Cosmic Marvel before then because it was all Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning writing it. It was like their own little personal corner where they were writing like Silver Surfer and Nova and Guardians of the Galaxy, and they had the Annihilation War. It's a fun read. So if you ever get curious about Cosmic Marvel, check that out.
So that's kind of why I didn't, because I'm like, I don't really like stuff about space and like that. Nah. I'm probably not gonna like Guardians of the Galaxy. And then I'm like, oh my god, there's a talking raccoon. I'm in. That's all. That's all it took.
But yeah, so that's kind of our background. Do you guys want to hop on into our topic?
Yeah. Speaking of talking raccoons, what about a talking monkey thing?
Lucky thing.
What is Beast? We're gonna discuss Beast from the X-Men, I think. And at some point he was a man, and then he turned into like a blue kind of monkey thing.
Wow, he was originally a grey monkey thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then they
Well,
turned
and
him
before
into
that, he was just a guy with big feet.
Yeah, so he was a human first, and then he turned into like a furry animal of some description, and then he became a lion, and then he became
Back to the
more
ape.
like an ape. I think, is that what he's like now?
Yeah, he's more of the ape.
Okay, so he's been a lot of different animals. He's had a lot of transitional periods, shall we say?
Yeah. So for context, just kind of to start from the beginning, Beast is one of the original 5 of the X-Men, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. He debuted with Cyclops and Jean Grey and Angel and Iceman and Xavier, and that was the 1960s incarnation of the X-Men, which wasn't terribly popular at first. They really kind of, that book really picked up steam with Chris Claremont later on.
Yeah.
But at that point, Beast wasn't really a member of that team anymore. So to kind of go back, Beast was the guy with the big hands and the big feet. He was just kind of this. I've seen a lot of clips of Stan Lee talking about Beast, and this goes back to the 1990s. There was this like talking forum with Stan Lee talking to like Fabian Nicieza and Scott Lobdell and at that point the young writers who were writing X-Men in the 90s, and he was kind of just talking about the history of the original X-Men. And so yeah, Beast was sort of the anti-thing. When the Fantastic Four were created, their character voices were essentially matching their physical appearance and powers. So, the Thing was a really gruff, to the point person. Johnny Storm was, a hothead, quick to act. But with the X-Men, at least with Beast, they went the opposite direction. So Beast is kind of, the big guy, big hands, big feet, was very gymnastics related and had some strength to him, but he was also very well spoken and very eloquent. And that's been a very consistent part of his character through the years.
Well, I think actually he was in the very first issue of X-Men, he was sort of more like the Thing, talking with a bit of a tough guy accent and stuff. But then, like, they really quickly realized we need to, differentiate him from the Thing. Otherwise, what's the point, I guess?
Right.
But yeah, and that's part of what sets Beast apart as well, is his intelligence and his loquaciousness, and he's got a way with words, and it makes him the smartest person in the room, but then that doesn't always necessarily translate into some of the things that he does, which is kind of what led us to want to talk about Beast, I think, is because he's a character who's he's quite morally ambiguous, and but at the same time, I know you guys kind of are of the opinion that maybe some of the writers who've written him over the years have kind of gone a bit too far with that, whereas I'm kind of thinking that it's a kind of a good thing that like there's like such a thin line between him, as a good guy, as a member of the X-Men, as a hero, and like the Dark Beast who comes from the Age of Apocalypse, who's kind of there's just that thin sliver that separates the two, really.
Yeah, I guess to kind of. Oh, go ahead, Dylan.
Well, that's a good point, but I think my issue was they already have the Dark Beast. Like, I get the reason that they were doing it. The reason that now Beast is more of a morally ambiguous character that's kind of treading the lines a little bit is to show that the Dark Beast from Age of Apocalypse wasn't just like a mirror image of Beast, that it is a possibility. It could be the future. And even Grant Morrison touched on that with the end of his run, where was it Here Comes Tomorrow, I believe, where it was set like 1,000 years in the future or something, and Beast is the main villain in that, which is really interesting because Beast had a pretty prominent role as a hero during the rest of Grant Morrison's run, the beginning of the run, as a very clean cut, straight up member of the X-Men who was definitely on the side of good, and then it ends with him being a bit of a villainous character. So I can see why they did it, but to me, I'm like, I feel like the whole point of Beast is that he is smart enough to know that he is on the right side of history, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, and the reason they brought the Dark Beast over to this universe or whatever, this timeline, is as that contrast, as that foil. He fills that role. Beast can continue to be Beast.
Well, and to kind of, and more my point on it was, I really enjoyed Beast's characterization before all of that. In the original run, Beast and Iceman were kind of the two immature practical jokers of the team, and that kind of carried on. Beast was kind of this fun-loving goofball that didn't, even though he had that radical body transformation where he went from just a guy with big hands and feet to being blue and furry with claws and pointed teeth, it didn't really impact him. He didn't have the Ben Grimm, like, oh, my life is ruined. Like, he carried
Yeah.
it with stride. He saw the positives behind it. And what I also liked about him was he was one of the few X-Men before Wolverine that was free to join other teams. I mean, he was on the Avengers for a long time, and he had like a buddy cop relationship with Wonder Man that I really enjoyed. And I guess that's the thing about it is I think it was the more recent characterizations of him not just being morally gray, but just outright fucking shady. That just it's a very big departure from the Beast that I enjoyed. I mean, even animated series Beast, when you
Right.
first see him, he's, kind of goofing off with Morph.
I agree. Like, I feel like there was always a fun loving kind of edge to the Beast. He was that was part of the charm as well. He was very intelligent and well spoken, but he had like this kind of more playful side. He felt like a really good, like, well developed character. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? He wasn't just like Mr. Smart, or he wasn't just like Mr. Scary Blue Guy. Like, there were a lot of layers to him, which I really liked. The fact that he would use his humor to kind of mask his own like insecurities and stuff, or the fact that he would, he was a smart guy, but also he could be the comic relief. He could be on lots of different teams. He was very versatile. What was the one you were saying where, like, whenever he became a lion, he lost his thumbs. He couldn't play guitar anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
he
that was
so he ended up taking up the drums instead. You're like, I love this guy, and I feel like, to your point, Corey, I feel like it's a bit of a shame where these days, from what I understand, they seem to be pushing him more into that villainous role. When you're like, I think that the role he did take previous to that, he fits so well that there are other people in the X-Men universe which have fucking billions of people who are now all alive again or whatever. Surely one of them could fill that role
well,
that the Beast is currently filling better.
well, and I don't want to discuss a lot of more recent things, guy. I know where John is, with trade back reading, but he's a primary character in the current X-Force comic, and a lot of that real dark characterization is there.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, so what I really, like you said, that was kind of the thing I liked about Beast. He was very, jovial, very well spoken, very intelligent. Didn't have a lot of like the woe is me pathos that other characters in a similar predicament did have, and it made him stand out. Do you recall when he was briefly drawn to be more of a coyote? It was very
Oh.
recent. There was a comic that he was in, I think it was Sword, but like the artist had him had this really long snout and he just looked like a dog.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find it real quick. You guys, John, we've chatted a little bit there.
Mhm.
Defend yourself.
Well, I don't disagree with your characterization of him at all. I think, yeah, he has been sort of the jovial one and a bit fun-loving over the years, but I think as well with his intelligence comes a sense of responsibility, and he takes certain issues really personally. So like when the legacy virus came along and mutants were dying left, right, and center, he felt like it was up to him to kind of help find a cure, and that sort of led to him doing some shady things there in the name of like the greater good. I think at one point he sort of handed over like a young mutant to Mr. Sinister to try and give him the resources he needed to kind of get to grips with the virus and do his research and stuff. And you saw the same sort of thing as well with the aftermath of M Day, when the Scarlet Witch said no more mutants and reduced the population to like just 198 mutants. He initially reached out to the usual suspects of like Reed Richards and Tony Stark, but when they couldn't help, he had no bones like getting in touch with Doctor Doom or Mr. Sinister or like the High Evolutionary or MODOK or Arnim Zola, like all these just evil characters basically.
Yeah.
Just because those were like the options that he felt like he couldn't afford to not to take. So
Right, but like you can see why he did it though. Like a
yeah,
lot of those guys, like Mr. Sinister, as much as sinister as he may be, is like the guy who knows like genetics and cloning and stuff like this the most. And didn't he was like trying to bargain with Strife to get some kind of DNA from the Summers family, because he loves those guys in the Summers family for some unknown reason.
Sinister
But
or Strife?
huh?
Were
Oh,
you saying
Sinister.
Sinister or Strife? Okay.
Well, I guess both really.
I mean,
When you
Strife
think about it.
is kind of a member of the Summers family.
yeah,
But like in the case of like um the No More Mutants thing, M Day, I feel like a lot of that is more to do, and I guess in a way the Legacy virus as well, because that targeted like purely mutants. In both of those scenarios, Beast was faced with like the idea that this could potentially wipe out all of mutant kind, and he has to go through every single option he has in order to preserve that, which those are really high stakes. You know what I mean? Like that shit is super big. And so in that case, it really is like he has to go to the smartest minds in the world, like Doctor Doom and Mr. Sinister and all. The high level evolutionary, yeah, they are definitely morally questioned characters, but like who else logically could he turn to? I feel like
Yeah.
in the I don't want to in those situations, I feel like it's probably justified.
but
You
I
know?
think that a lot of other people in his situation wouldn't turn to those characters because of they are the bad guys. So the fact that Beast does do that sort of puts him on a different sort of level of thinking to a lot of his counterparts.
So to butt in real quick, I did send you both in our group chat some panels of Beast drawn like a weird coyote man,
Okay.
Yeah.
just so you know that I'm not crazy. But to kind of go to your point,
Whoa! What the fuck? What?
yeah, I can't remember what run that was from, but yeah,
drew
it's
this?
I can't remember, but yeah, it's something, man.
Is that what they think a lion looks like? That
Yeah.
second panel where you see his teeth. Oh, I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Well, I'm glad I could bring that into your life. But yeah, to kind of go to that point, that it's storyline wise with the legacy virus, that made all the sense in the world. And with the MJ situation, that made sense too. The problem that I have with it is that there are a lot of very lazy writers who go, all right, that's a characterization, I'm going to make that his entire character. It's kind of like that period of time where Nightcrawler stopped being a swashbuckler and started just being a priest.
Yeah.
And it like just took anything that was interesting about Nightcrawler and just threw it away because he's the religious mutant now. And I
Right.
think
Whenever
that's
that was just like a part of his, that wasn't his whole gimmick. That was just
Yep.
a little part of him, you know?
Yep. It's kind of like when they made like the only thing that they had for Colossus was that he was in love with Kitty Pryde. And it's just like
Yeah.
there's so many more. It's when you get like a crap writer that just focuses on that. Of all right, Hank McCoy is the morally gray super genius that will do whatever it needs to be done. He replaced Xavier after Xavier was killed off in the Phoenix storyline where Cyclops and Emma Frost and Magic and Colossus and Namor all became hosts of the Phoenix at the same time. After Xavier was killed, he replaced Xavier in the Illuminati.
Yep.
And that was fine too, because that made sense and it was a little more nuanced than that. Like I said, it's just my issue is I feel like too many writers just stick with the he's the one that's gonna do questionable things.
Right. Like I feel like if if you look at the Legacy Virus and the stuff he did during M Day as your basis for that, you're as a basis for him being a morally dubious character, you're missing out on all of the other years and all of the other storylines where he didn't do that. You know what I mean? Like
Much longer run storylines.
exactly.
Years and years and years of development, and then you picked like 2 stories.
Yeah, it seems a little bit of a stretch to me, Although, like, I don't know what other X-Men you could use that for, but I'm sure that if I was being paid by Marvel to write that story, I could probably figure it out, right?
I think Forge.
Yeah.
Or they love to do that with Forge too, but it makes sense for Forge because that's how he was introduced. Forge was questionable. Always.
There's been a lot of like that with Forge. Like, he works with the X-Men, but also like he's got a lot of stuff going on.
The government and the the mutant. He wasn't with Mutant Liberation Front, but he was the one that was. There was a series where he was in charge of X Factor, and his X Factor lineup included Sabretooth and Mystique.
Yeah.
Where they were kind of more like the Suicide Squad than they.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Forge is a pretty good shout.
But that's the difference is that Forge is an inventor, whereas Hank is a biochemist. It's entirely 2 different levels of science.
Mm-hmm.
And Forge that's his power, is to know how to fix things or make things, and Beast, that's an earned doctorate. Beast's power set has nothing to do with his intelligence, I'm aware of.
Right, that's true. That's
just
true.
proving our own points. The fun.
And I feel and I also feel like you said, like, because Beast's intelligence is kind of like homegrown, like he's done that himself, and he's spent years and years like working on that and crafting that, and it does seem a bit of a cop out for him now to just throw a lot of that intelligence away. You know what I mean? Like, if he's doing this more, and again, I don't know exactly what he's up to these days, but it seems a little bit like surely he would have the intelligence and the smarts to know that a lot of the stuff he's doing is,
Yeah, it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Now, John, how far have you read into X-Force?
Funnily enough, it's what I'm reading at the moment.
Okay.
So I've just got up to the first Hellfire Gala, which, funnily enough, was sort of a Beast-centric issue where he basically was trying to use these ambassadors from Terra Verde, which was like a like South American country they had issues with a few issues before, but he was trying to use them to plant spyware basically on as many sort of nations and heroes and villains as possible to kind of just bug them and get information on them basically. But he's not doing it for nefarious means or whatever. He's doing it for Krakoa's protection, I guess.
Well, and that is absolutely the most consistent thing, is that he's not an evil genius by any means. Every morally dubious gray shade thing that he does is ultimately for good reasons. But like I said, it's just one of those things. I'm afraid the other parts of his character just get swallowed up.
Yeah, I can understand that concern. But it's tough to say because like I'm just sort of catching up with everything they're doing with him at the moment, so I'm not sure how big of a like turn this is, like a
Oh, sure.
like a heel turn or whatever. But
Yeah, and we won't really get into that. If I could point this towards a topic, I know John, you've read it. I'm familiar with it, but the storyline after the Phoenix Five, where things fell apart in the X-Men and they split up between the X-Men run and the Wolverine in the X-Men run, where Wolverine was the headmaster of the school. You are familiar with the storyline of the original five being brought back from the past to the present, correct?
yep.
How was Beast's characterization in that? Like, both modern day Beast and like past Beast.
So the whole reason why Beast thought it was a good idea to bring them to the future was sort of twofold. Like the first was he kind of knew that he was about to mutate again, but it was gonna sort of push him closer to death as well. So he was sort of faced with his own mortality. But at the same time, he had been having all these issues with Cyclops, who, after the schism between Cyclops team and Wolverine's team, Cyclops had just become more sort of militant and like a revolutionary, basically. Um, and Beast kind of thought that he was getting further and further away from Xavier's dream. And so he kind of wanted to just snap Cyclops out of this sort of phase, I guess. And he figured bring back their younger self to kind of remind him of who they were and what they were fighting for, without really giving much thought to the consequences of obviously plucking these young versions of themselves out of the timeline, and putting them in a situation where they ended up getting stuck in the present for like a considerable amount of time, which meant that any changes or anything that happened to them here and now would obviously have an effect on them in the past as well. So it was a misguided attempt, but to kind of sway Cyclops, but it was also one which, from Beast's point of view, I think came from a place where uh, he thought he was doing the right thing. And again, like I say, he was probably influenced as well by his own mortality and his, being so close to death. Although that got quickly resolved when I think Jean Grey did like sort of a mind meld between the young and old versions of Beast, and they kind of between them managed to figure out a way to keep him alive. But yeah, so it was a strange storyline, but from Beast's point of view, he kind of, I think he was doing the right thing, or at least what he thought was the right thing.
So what was the characterization of young Beast?
I think he was he kind of didn't like who he grew up to be. Like, seeing him do the things that he'd done and turn the direction that he turned. So the young beast basically kind of rejected it, and he ended up moving away from science and more towards magic. So I can't remember exactly what the storyline was, but there came a point where he basically, had to perform a spell to kind of, like deal with whatever issue they were going through. But this spell ended up sort of backfiring on him, and it turned him into like a furry demon-like creature, basically. Um,
Mm.
uh, so that kind of still ended up giving him his, or like a similar enough like physical appearance to what we're used to. But yeah, I think I'm right in saying he kind of had unrequited feelings for Jean Grey as well at that time, which again had never really been like touched upon in
Mm.
the 60 odd years of X-Men history and whatnot, and felt like it kind of came out of nowhere, and didn't go anywhere afterwards as well, really. So it was a bit of a strange choice, but he had issues with being in the future, that's for sure.
Right, like modern Beast doesn't show any kind of unrequited love for Jean Grey, so why would past Beast show that?
Well, it was part of the whole thing where I think Brian Michael Bendis was just looking to really mix things up as much as possible. Like I think he even gave Jean Grey like an extra power, which she never demonstrated, ever again. And Archangel, or I guess he was Angel still at the time, he ended up going through, um, what was it called? Some sort of cosmic mirror, which basically
Oh
turned,
yeah,
like, souped up his powers.
I forgot all about the cosmic mirror.
Yeah.
How could you forget about the cosmic mirror?
Yeah,
So
yeah, I remember that. Fuck, what was that from? I'll look it up real quick. Continue talking, please.
yeah, yeah.
The Black Vortex.
There you go. Yeah. So it was just like a weird kind of exercise, I guess, to kind of bring these characters back without as much of the baggage that we have today with the sort of adult versions, and then just kind of, I don't know, it's almost like an ultimate universe version of them, really, like kind of reimagine them for a modern audience. Like, I don't think it always worked. Like, there was a really clumsy bit with Jean Grey accidentally outing Iceman as gay, uh and
Yeah.
things of that nature, and it's just like, ooh,
Well, that's Bendis.
yeah.
Uh, Brian Michael Bendis is a very infuriating writer because he doesn't really much care for other people's continuity, and he's also really bad about not putting the toys back in the toy box when he's finished. Also, he had one of the worst Moon Knight runs of all time, where he took Moon Knight's dissociative identity disorder and decided instead one of his multiple personalities were Captain America, Wolverine, and Spider-Man.
What?
Yeah, it was really bad. It was really bad.
Yeah.
Didn't care for it. Had to wait for another writer to fix Moon Knight, which is the current version that you see in the his Disney Plus series as the fixed version of Moon Knight.
Hmm.
Okay. I want to see the Spider-Man one though.
Yeah, basically it was just Moon Knight, but he had like made his own shield and his own Wolverine claws and his own like webbing, and he would have these conversations with himself, but like Captain America, Wolverine, and Spider-Man were there with him, even though they weren't in the room.
This doesn't
And it
sound
was
good.
So it was another also a great example of Brian Michael Bendis's storytelling, where he takes an entire year to tell one story, and it moves at a snail's pace, and most of the panels are just people talking.
Hmm.
Not a Bendis fan, if you can't tell.
Fair enough. I mean, the way you've described that doesn't make it sound super, super good. You know.
Yeah, but to kind of go back to Beast real quick, that was one of the things I did like about Beast was that he was one of the few X-Men that joined other teams. He was on the Defenders, he was in Secret X-Men, he was in the Illuminati, he was in the regular Avengers. Oh, no, it wasn't Secret X-Men, it was Secret Avengers, where they were the kind of Black Ops team.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, he's had a lot of different teams and interactions with different characters, which is very rare for mutant characters. Like the X-Men world is always kind of off on their own little planet for the most part.
Yeah.
So he's one of the few that got to interact with other parts of Marvel continuity. And that's another thing people forget about.
Right. I like that too, because usually the only real crossover you see is like Wolverine, and that's
Mhm.
like a solo thing. He just pops up as like, I'm gonna kill this guy, and then that's kind of the thing. Whereas with Beast, like he showed that he could work in all these other teams, and he had a lot of like good camaraderie with other people. He was one of the few X-Men, one of the few mutants that really did kind of cross over into the other comic books, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, he is when he left the X-Men books and was in X Factor for a period of time after Claremont, changed up the X-Men with Storm and Colossus, Nightcrawler, Wolverine, etc. After he left X Factor, he didn't return to the X-Men books until the Jim Lee run in the 90s. He was gone for a long period of time from those books.
Yeah, which is mad when you think about it, because like people, in the but me and John would have seen Beast in the X-Men. You're like, oh, he's one of the X-Men, and then when you look at
Mm-hmm.
the history, you're like, well, he was, but then he wasn't an X-Man for a long
Like
time.
20 years almost.
Yeah, it's mad.
Yeah. So to kind of we'll head off into another direction. Beast is one of those characters that has turned up in other media. He was in the X-Men cartoon, which we brought up, but he was also in a few of the movies, played by
Kelsey
Kelsey
Grammer.
Grammer in
Kelsey
X-Men
Grammer.
3, and
Yes.
then Nicholas Hoult in
Mhm.
the more
Yes.
recent X-Men movies.
Yes.
Do you feel like those movies did the character justice?
I felt
I think so. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I was going to say Kelsey Grammer definitely channeled the vibes of the animated series Beast.
Yeah,
He feel like that he's a good cast for Beast.
he
Mm-hmm.
was
Yeah. I thought
nailed
that
it.
was pretty good. The problem was like the film itself was like kind of
Not great.
Yeah.
but he was really good as Beast. Like he makes sense as Beast. Nicholas Hoult was good. I think obviously he's playing a younger kind of Beast. Not as wizened and as intelligent. I think as book smart as the Kelsey Grammer kind of. But I think he did a good job though.
There's a lot
Yeah,
of angst about Nicholas Holt's Beast as well. Like he didn't accept his beast-like form, and he was always trying to find a cure for it. So
mhm.
Yeah, and
he
again,
wouldn't
like I
accept it.
I would have liked it if he was a little bit more, like kind of what we had said earlier, like him kind of being a little bit more jokey to kind of like cover his
Mhm.
own insecurities and stuff. He seemed very like eager to not be the Beast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that he was one of the first mutants that was partnering up with James McAvoy's Xavier, but he was clearly just wanting to be in a support role. And the scene where he, reveals his mutation and his weird monkey feet, and all the things he could do with it. I remember like there was a moment where he had like almost like a sense of pride because everyone's like, "Whoa," but then like Havoc and Banshee were making fun of him, and then he was really self-conscious again.
Yeah.
Whereas if you went with the comic book characterization of Beast at that age, you've been right there probably bullying somebody with them.
Quite possibly, yeah.
But yeah, no, I thought the Nicholas Hoult version was fine. The Kelsey Grammer was obviously the better one, just because it did capture that animated series Beast. Beast was in the cartoon, like the first huge chunk of the animated series is Beast in jail.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he got captured during the like Night of the Sentinels two-parter.
Mm-hmm.
He got captured and Morph got killed or almost killed.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. Don't people haven't
Spoilers
seen
for a 30-year-old cartoon.
people haven't seen it all the way through yet. Come on, man.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to spoil that. I think people know that that's what happens, right?
There are certain things that like certain sounds that get stuck in your head. The X-Men theme is obviously one of those, but it felt like for the first like dozen episodes, it would go the previously on X-Men, and you would hear Morph going, "Wolverine, look out!" and then Wolverine like stabbing a Sentinel, going, "This one's for Morph."
That is, you know
Over
what?
and over again for like 8 episodes.
That is a fair point. They really did kind of like I mean, this really was previously on the X-Men. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it was about 3 months ago. Previously
yeah,
on
this
X-Men.
happened like 2 seasons ago. What are you doing, man?
Video game wise, what games did Beast turn up in?
Oh, what the fuck? No, I feel like whenever it came to video games, you know, whenever you saw, especially in the early 90s, whenever you saw a lot of those X-Men video games, Beast was never one that was front and center. It was always, well, obviously Wolverine, number one. You know, Cyclops got a good look. And because a lot of the other characters from because the TV show would have been around that time, like I'm trying to remember, like X-Men versus Street Fighter or something, against Marvel versus Capcom.
Mhm.
You would have got Wolverine, Cyclops, probably Storm. I remember Gambit was definitely in one, and Rogue. Those kind of guys. I don't really remember Beast getting a whole lot of representation. You know?
There was
No.
a fighting game that came out around the time of the first movie that I think he was in. I think it was like X-Men Academy.
Ooh, X-Men Academy.
Yeah, it was like a fighting game. Came out for PlayStation. Let me see if I can find it.
X-Men Academy.
X-Men Mutant Academy. It was a fighting game. It came out in the year 2000. It was a tie-in to the movie. Beast was a character, but only character not present in the Game Boy version. So he was not in the Game Boy version.
Son of a bitch.
But yeah, there was like a comic book costume of him, and then there was one that was kind of designed to look more like the costumes in the movie. But this was like before. This was like X-Men 1 movie that
Yeah.
this game was based off of.
What was that game? Was it Marvel? Was it Marvel Ultimate Alliance?
I don't
Was it
think it was
Yeah,
a Marvel
yeah.
Ultimate Alliance.
I feel like he would have been in that because like pretty much everybody was in that.
That was a
Yeah.
good one. Marvel Ultimate Alliance is a game that I will go through and play again and again.
It's fun if you have
The
like
third
other people
one's-
playing it
the
with you.
Second and third one were fucking terrible though.
If you have other people playing with you, it's great crack.
Well, didn't it originate as X-Men Legends first? And
It was. That was the
Uh,
pilot essentially.
yeah, and then they spun off the Ultimate Alliance basically from those games.
Was Beast in X-Men Legends then?
Had to have been. I think every character was in
Yeah,
X-Men
surely.
Legends.
Ah, there you go.
I'll do a quick scroll on. This reminds me of the episode that didn't come out because the audio was terrible. Of where we were basically reading the list of characters that got killed off in the Ultimatum series.
Oh yeah, yeah. For anybody who wants to know, this is like our second run through of the show, and we had like a bunch of episodes recorded, and some of them we'll probably end up revisiting because
Yeah.
there's some real gold there. You know, that was a good one. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, that was just fun to read that list of names because it was just like some fucking bloodbath.
Everybody died. Spoiler alert: everybody died. You know,
Almost.
the Beast. Did he die?
I think so. He's probably one of those one of the random characters that got
Yeah.
drowned.
I mean, like if he died off panel, don't worry about it. He's definitely dead though.
I
you
think
know?
the best death was Doctor Strange getting his head, getting squeezed until his head popped. That was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Beast was one of the playable characters in X-Men Legends.
That's
Mhm.
good.
I
Good that he
never
got a
played
little bit.
X-Men Legends though. Was he in X-Men Legends too?
He was, yeah.
I don't remember X-Men Legends.
He
I
wasn't
feel like
a featured
I might have
playable
got-
character in X-Men Legends 2, according to this wiki article.
Oh no, he was definitely a playable character.
Wiki says no, John.
Wiki doesn't know dick.
He was an Engage exclusive. I don't know what the fuck Engage
But
is.
that's John was playing the Engage one. That's the thing.
Oh yeah, he was playing Engage.
Yeah.
Of
Who
course.
wasn't back in the day? We all had an Engage.
Absolutely. I'm mad though because they included fucking Multiple Man as a villain in this apparently. Jimmy Magic's never hurt anybody.
Why?
Yeah, Jimmy Magic's never hurt anybody. He was a villain in the Ultimate Universe. That's
Yeah.
probably why.
Yeah.
So God, there's other X-Men cartoons. There's Wolverine in the X-Men that I think he was a character in as well. God, that cartoon sucked though.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever seen it.
So basically the premise is Xavier dies, and in his like dying wish or whatever, he goes, Wolverine, you have to be the leader of the X-Men. And it's like the worst person in the world to lead the fucking team. It's like, yeah, and the team lineup included like Emma Frost. Cyclops was there, but he wasn't allowed to be the leader because he was moody because Jean Grey died.
Yep.
And yeah, fun times.
Doesn't sound like it.
No, I didn't enjoy it, but it was a Nickelodeon cartoon that died the second Marvel was acquired by Disney. They were like, nope, done with this.
Yeah.
Do you remember the X-Men Evolution cartoon where it was like some of the X-Men characters were like in high school and other ones weren't, and it wasn't terribly consistent as to who was?
Briefly, I think I feel like I probably watched a little bit of it.
Yeah, like Storm and Wolverine were adults, but Cyclops and Jean Grey were high school students.
What?
Yeah, I remember that being really weird.
Was Gambit in it?
He was, but he was like a teenager, and he was like I think he was like one of Magneto's acolytes.
Yeah, I don't think I like this show.
Yeah. Gambit was kind of a anti-hero antagonist in Wolverine and the X-Men as well.
Wait, so who was Beast in X-Men Evolutions? Was he at school? Was he a teacher at the school?
I imagine he was a teacher.
Yeah.
Let me do another quick little Google search. This is the amount of research we did, obviously.
Exactly. The problem is we researched Beast, but the one thing we didn't research is this X-Men Evolutions cartoon. So I'm very sorry.
He was originally a gym coach and chemistry teacher at Bayville High before
That's fair enough.
Transformation into the ape-like beast could no longer be controlled with medications.
Yeah, so he joined the second season.
Yeah.
He could still be the teacher.
He retired from teaching to join the X-Men.
Who better to teach you gym class than a monkey? Right? The science one, hit and miss. I would not trust that monkey to teach me science. But monkey can jump around and stuff. He's like, just do what I do. You know, I would buy that.
So yeah, what we have discovered is basically with Beast, you have one of two versions. You can have either the intelligent, jovial, good time Beast, or the super intelligent, morally dubious, will cross ethical lines for the greater good Beast. But yeah, so that was I guess that's episode 1. We kind of touched base on his comic history, his appearances.
Wait. Don't wrap things up just yet.
Oh, okay.
One question before we leave.
Sure.
And this is for you guys, and this is for everybody who listens to the show. If you want to leave comments or feedback or whatever the heck, I don't know how any of this works, but you can email Corey. we'll put Corey's email address at the end of this.
Sure.
But all right, so you had Human Beast, you had the first the Gray Beast / the Blue Beast, you had Lion Beast, you had the monkey, the current ape Beast, you had whatever the fuck you showed us in that picture.
Coyote looking thing.
Yes. Like a horse kind of thing.
A horse with unsettling teeth.
Yeah, oh, that's freaky.
I'm gonna make that the thumbnail for the video.
Which is your favorite incarnation of the Beast?
Well, who's starting?
whoever you can. Do you want me to? I like Lion Beast myself. He was always my favorite. I have a real like soft spot for that whole Grant Morrison run, and I thought Lion Beast was
His
so
relationship with
perfect.
Bird was really cute.
What?
His relationship with Bird.
Yeah, but like he had a lot of like really good relationships with other, like him and Emma Frost worked really well as well. You know, I thought the lion worked really well with the way he was drawn. He had a lot of like a little sophisticated kind of air about him, which I really liked, and I thought that was a really good like evolution of his character up to that point. You know what I mean? I really liked that. So I like Lion Beast. I thought he was my favorite.
I'll go traditional blue ape Beast.
Okay.
That's the one I'll go with.
The old blue Beast, he wasn't. He was like monkey-esque, but he wasn't really a monkey. Like now, I think he's definitely an ape.
He's definitely more monkey-based, but I like the one with the pointy
Wolverine
parted hair.
Yeah.
Wolverine hair.
Yeah.
See, that's exactly what I was gonna say as well. The Jim Lee classic.
Yeah.
Beast.
That's fair enough. I think that's the one a lot of people will go for. That's what they would consider like class, because that was the one in the cartoon. That's the Beast they're gonna be like, as Kelsey Grammer. That's Beast, you know. And everybody's not gonna remember the fucking horse face.
It will now, because it's gonna be the thumbnail.
We gotta find out who drew that, because I'm gonna write a very harshly worded letter to that person.
Hey, remember 10 years ago when you drew this weird fucking beast?
What the fuck? You know?
What was that about?
Yeah. You owe me money for that. I had to look at that.
I think it was Agents of Sword was the series, I think, but don't quote me on that.
That one image was the reason that book got canceled.
Oh boy, it was a whole run, that's for sure.
They were like,
Well,
no more of that, please.
well, I think that's gonna do it for us. Next time we may have a topic that is a storyline, maybe just a general concept, or it could just be another deep dive on a particular character. Thankfully for us, there's like a million fucking X-Men that we could do.
Exactly. You don't know what we're gonna do next week or next month or whenever these episodes come out. We don't even know when they come out. The mystery. You have to subscribe
yeah, they may
to find
never cut
out.
that at all, depending on the audio sounds.
Exactly. It's a whole. You gotta subscribe to see what happens next. This is the cliffhanger to all cliffhangers. You never know what's gonna come next. It's a big mixed bag. But
We don't even know what our name is.
no, we have no idea what this show is called. We will find out when the show is posted. Like, oh, that's what it is. It better not be the horse-faced beasts.
The horse-faced beasts.
I'm not gonna like that if that's what it is. But
What if we called ourselves HFB?
no, because we'll know what it stands for.
We'll know what it stands for.
No, unless we come up with a different acronym, like a different meaning for the words.
Horny Frederick Brown.
That, I mean, I don't know why that would be the name for a comic book podcast. This
Listen,
is
man.
chatter we're gonna do off mic. But this is the first episode. We want to say thank you very much for listening, and subscribe and share this with your friends and stuff. They want to hear all about Beast as well. It's very important.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
kind of like that we started with Beast and not like Captain America or Wolverine. I feel
Yeah.
like Beast was a good one to start with.
Yeah.
I think so. So yeah, make sure to check out the next episode. You never know what it's gonna be about. It'll be amazing either way.
So yeah, thank you both for being a part of this as well, and thank whoever is listening for listening, and thank whoever made Horse-Faced Beast.
No, don't thank them.
We'll see you guys later.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.